Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. I'm going to give you some information now, which will be astonishing to you. Certainly to the point where you may need to start referring to the SNP as the GNP. Because it seems that the party that claims it puts Scotland first has done nothing except talk about Gaza. It seems that only Gaza is the subject for this party. They seem to be fixated on it. They have this idea that that is the only thing important to the people of Scotland. And what is truly astounding when we go through some figures here is one of the people who seems strangely to be more concerned about his own constituency than the people of Gaza is Patrick Grady. Astonishing, isn't it? A man who does that, mind you, of course, he will have a fixation on those that he's very close to. Obviously, it's very difficult for him to touch up people in Gaza. But people much closer to home, I suppose, are possibly there. But these figures will blow your mind. Let's have a look and see why the Gaza National Party does not represent Scotland. Here goes. Now, we'll go into these numbers, but their claim to be the party of Scotland is obviously going to be laid completely bare right now, because what you're going to see is a bunch of people who don't actually care one iota for Scotland, not while there's an axe to grind and that they can create division. The poor people of Scotland aren't being represented at Westminster. Strangely, it's only Humza Yousaf's relatives in Gaza that seem to be being represented at Westminster. Let's have a look at this. The numbers are crazy. Is the SNP obsessed with Gaza? We crunched the numbers to see if the Nats really are stronger for Scotland. Now, this guy, Douglas Dickey, the content editor, he's got someone out there and they've done the research. And you are not going to believe the numbers that you're about to see. The Nats at Westminster have faced questions over their focus on events in the Middle East amid suggestions they've taken their eye off the ball elsewhere. Gosh, say it ain't so. Imagine that. The SNP not particularly caring about what happens in Scotland. Who'd have thunk it? Well, everyone, really, I suppose. Anyway, the SNP has marketed itself as being the only true Scottish political party, adopting the mantra of stronger for Scotland. But in recent weeks, the party's faced accusations of having a new obsession: Gaza. The Nats position themselves as staunchly pro-ceasefire party. They've looked to draw on differences between their policy preference and that of opposition parties, especially Labour. What they're doing is trying yet again to create division, to create a grievance, to create, oh, look how we do different things differently from the rest of the United Kingdom. We need independence now. They don't care one iota for Gaza. They're just merely using Gaza as an excuse to, increase that difference. But it isn't going to wash, because we all know that they don't care one iota, because they're all full of it, aren't they? Anyway, the situation in Gaza is horrific, and it would be hard not to be affected by the plight of those caught up in the war between Israel and Hamas. Although you've got to admit, Gaza is Hamas. They are all Hamas supporters. So, takes your pick. Anyway, this is, as so often the case with the SNP, the suspicion remains that their policy position owes more to be contrarian to the UK government than it being a principled stance. Of course it is. It's any area that they can be different, they will be different, even if it directly harms them. But it's important that there are differences, and those differences are always widened, maintained, and highlighted. Regardless, the party has placed a strong emphasis on the situation in the Middle East, and it has led to social media suggestions that they have taken their eye off the ball in terms of Scotland, and especially the constituencies to which they are elected to represent. And this is where the numbers come, and this is where it's going to hurt. We crunched the numbers to see that if that came through at the House of Commons, and there could be some merit to it. And of the party's 43 MPs, 17 have spoken more about Gaza in Westminster than their own constituencies since the war started, at least according to analysis compiled using the official Hansard record. It's just amazing, isn't it? Since the Hamas attack on Israel on October the 7th, SNP MPs have mentioned Gaza 101 times in the Commons. They've spoken about their own constituencies more, but not by much. Of the 116 times they've spoken about their constituency, 53 of them have been from just 4 MPs. So virtually half of all the times any MP has mentioned his constituency have come from 4 people. Kirsty Blackman, Patrick Grady, Chris Stevens and Alison Thewlis. Unbelievable. That means only 4 people are representing their constituencies. And Patrick Grady's one of them. Stunning, isn't it? 8 Nats have spoken about Gaza without mentioning their constituencies at all. Mary Black, Alan Brown, Peter Grant, Stuart MacDonald, the other Stuart MacDonald, Gavin Newlands, John Nicholson and Alan Smith. All these 8 people, all they've done is talk about Gaza. Not one of them, not one, has represented their own constituency. And if you take the 4 that only talk about their own constituencies, mostly, that means most of them aren't bothered about their own constituency. 8 MPs haven't mentioned either, of course. And there are other ways to stand up for your constituency, but it gives a snapshot of those who seem more focused to events abroad. Here are the top 10 SNPs most likely to mention Gaza at Parliament, with the number of times they speak about their own constituency or city in brackets. Stephen Flynn has talked about Gaza 13 times, and he's talked about Aberdeen twice. Brendan O'Hara talked about Gaza 8 times, his own constituency once. Joanna Cherry, 8 and 3. Patrick Grady, on the other hand, has talked about Gaza 7 times, but talked about his own constituency 18 times. So, by a weird way, Patrick Grady is the best SNP constituency SNP at Westminster. Doesn't that blow your mind? Alison Thewlis has talked about Gaza 6 times and her own constituency 13 times. Well done, Alison. Gavin Newlands has talked about Gaza 5 times and never mentioned his constituency once. Anam Kazia, 5 times Gaza, 3 times constituency. Chris Stevens, another excellent politician for his constituency, 5 times about Gaza, 12 times about his constituency. And Nicholson, John Nicholson, and Alan Brown, both. All 3 of these the same. John Nicholson, Alan Smith, and Alan Brown have mentioned Gaza 4 times, and they have never mentioned their constituency. These people need to have this highlighted in their constituencies to show their constituents that they are more concerned about the rights and freedoms of people in Gaza than of looking after and representing the people in their constituency. They are no longer Scottish MSPs. They are Gazan politicians. They represent Gaza at Westminster. I'm sure the people living in those constituencies are really glad that they're getting the service that they voted for. Well done. Well done for voting for people who don't care at all about you, your family, your constituency, anything. They just don't care. Because all to do with making trouble at Westminster. Super, innit? And if you do need to be represented, Patrick Grady, of all people. Who'd have thought it? Coming up. Perhaps come the general election, a lot of these people will no longer be there. Certainly, they've given the opposition immense amounts of ammunition now. The opposition can sit there at the next election whenever it's called and go, hey, look, this person, he represents Gaza. He doesn't talk about the constituency. He doesn't doesn't care about you. He's only concerned with making trouble and looking after the people in the Middle East who don't pay his salary. People who do pay his salary, treats with them contempt. It's handing the opposition a victory, isn't it? But they're too stupid to see it, I presume. And as for Flynn, what an idiot. He's supposed to be the leader of the House, the man who's supposed to represent Scotland at Westminster. And he's more concerned and obsessed with Gaza rather than Scotland. Let's show him the door come the next election. Aberdeen deserves better. Edinburgh deserves better too, but they all deserve better. Anyway, we'll stop there. Thank you very much for watching. Do please hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment. Please share the video. And I will speak to you later.